Welcome everyone to Epic Encounters. I hope you enjoy this week's message. I'm confident that the message from this series will meet you exactly where you are. Stay tuned for an epic journey.
Join me in Luke, the 8th chapter, verse number 41. And we're looking at the 41st verse. I'm going to jump from the 41st verse down to the 49th verse. And then we'll end around the 56th verse. So join me at Luke, the 8th chapter, the 41st verse. And it starts something like this. Then a man named Jairus, or Jairus, depending on how you pronounce or enunciate words. A man named Jairus, a leader of the local synagogue, came and fell at Jesus' feet, pleading with him to come home with him, because his only daughter, who was about 12 years old, was dying. Picks up the story again in the 49th verse. While he was still talking, someone from the leader's house, from Jairus' house, came up and told him, "Your daughter died. No need to bother Jesus." But when Jesus heard it, he answered him, saying, "Fear not, believe only, and she shall be made whole." And as they approached the house, the whole neighborhood was full of the sound of mourning, weeping, wailing, and loud crying. But Jesus told everyone to stay outside, everyone except for Peter, John, James, and of course the girl's father and mother. Then Jesus tells everybody, "Please stop crying. The girl isn't dead, she's only asleep." They laughed at Jesus to scorn, knowing that she was really dead. He put them all out and took her hand and called, saying, "Maid, arise." And her spirit came again, and she arose straightway, and he commanded to give her meat. Did you see that? Because we're going to spend some time talking about that. And he put them all out. And I want to look at the 50th verse. This is where we'll get our key scripture and our theme pretty much for today. Repeat after me. Fear not. Believe only. She shall be made whole. Fear not, fear not, fear not. Most have seen the flyer that was sent out this morning. Today, I want to talk to you specifically about this subject: ditch the funeral. For some of us, we're going to have to spend some time reconciling in our own mind that it's time for me to ditch the funeral. It's interesting because we've taken time to look at fears, and I've learned something. I've come to notice something, David, about my fears. And what I learned is that having fear is not all a bad thing. Fear is right here with the therapy and psychologists in the special education community called adaptive behavior. They've helped me to identify some key threats in my life. My fears have, y'all. Fears have allowed some of us to survive predators and natural disasters. It's because of my fears that I ran when I should have ran. It's because of my fear I avoided going in that direction. It's because of certain fears that I didn't stop to talk to that shady-looking individual. It's because of my fears when a fire, I ran and grabbed the fire extinguisher. All of these fears, I won't say they've been bad. They served me some use. My fears have served me some purpose at one point in my life or another. They are why I'm here right now. Come on, y'all. I can't just boo my fears completely. I can't rebuke my fears completely. If it wasn't for some of my fears, I would have died in that drive-by a long time ago. If it wasn't for some of my fears, I would have died in that relationship a long time ago. I can't rebuke all of my fears, y'all. My fears are partially the reason that I got to 2020. You ought to clap your hand. But in looking at my fears, Prophet, I've learned a couple of things, and I've researched a couple of things, and I like CNN.com. They had a very great article as it pertains to fears. Do you not know that most of us, or everybody, after research, they have concluded that we all are only actually born with two fears? Gabe, only 2 fears actually come innate. Did you not know that? Those 2 fears that we all are born with, that are innate, that are natural, the 2 fears that are responsible for me being born like this. Each individual, Vion, you have the fear naturally of falling and the fear of loud noises. Can I say that again? It's innate, Stephanie, inside of us that you were only born with the fear of loud noises or born with the fear of falling. So what that tells me is all the other fears that I picked up in life along the way, I had to learn that behavior from somebody else. I feared the abuser because it came at me, the expense of me being abused. I fear loneliness because it came at the expense of me being abandoned. I fear men because it came at the expense of me being tortured by a man. I fear love because it's at the expense of me never being loved properly before. Any other fear that you're dealing with right now in 2020, you didn't pick that up on your own. So we need to put the first excuse down today. The first excuse that we're going to ditch this afternoon is the excuse that, oh, I've always been like this. You ain't always been like that. You ain't always been scared of that. You ain't always had a phobia of that. No, that's just learned behavior. So in 2020, I got to make a conscious effort to start unlearning some bad behaviors, y'all. Got to start unlearning some fears. My fear of airplanes, I got to start unlearning some fears. My fear of seafood, I got to start unlearning some fears. My fear of leaving the house. I'm talking to real people right now. You really don't like leaving the house. That's why you stay in that house so much. It's not because you don't have a ride. It's not because you don't have a place to go. It's not because you don't have friends. It's because there's fear that I learned along the way. But the number one fear, Mama, the number one fear that most of us wrestle with in this room is the fear of dying. Come on now. Somebody say he's talking. The fear of dying, Bill Brown. Most of us struggle with the fear of dying. I know what I'm talking. I know I'm preaching right, Brikeia. You've seen your own funeral. You've seen everybody come to your funeral. You've even seen yourself die because of the heart attack. You've seen yourself succumb to the diabetes. You've seen yourself get into the car crash. You've seen yourself get shot. You've seen yourself get beat to a pulp. You've seen the stalker break into your house at night and put your pillow over you and smother you in your sleep. You've seen your kids raise up and take you out. You've seen the funeral in your mind. You've seen yourself dying. You've even seen the praise team singing at your funeral. You've even seen what church the funeral is in. You've even seen who the eulogist is or the person that's going to deliver the awesome message at your funeral. You've even seen what type of casket you're laying in. You've even seen what type of urn you want them to put your ashes in. You've even seen who the pallbearers are for the funeral. You've even seen who your spouse is going to remarry after the funeral. You've even seen how much money folks are going to spend of yours that you leave them after you die, after the funeral. The fear of dying has allowed the funeral to play out in the mind. See it. That's what's messing me up right now. My fear of dying. Seen it all out. Some of us walk around saying this, Gladys, I'm going to die just like my mama did. Why? Because I see the funeral. I'm going to die just like grandma and my daddy and them did. Why? Because I see the funeral. Some of us, David, have had near-death experiences because we came so close to death. I'm still haunted by my near-death experience. And I got that playing over and over again, but this time I don't see myself surviving the next incident, but instead I see my funeral. See the casket being closed. I see my funeral. And let me just say this. I'm not saying that anybody here should not be planning a funeral. All right, a good friend of mine, my pastor, Joe Trout, he is in a business where he actually sells funeral plans. And if you need one, I'll hook you up with his number and you could go ahead and get one so we don't have to have a GoFundMe account for you when you pass away, but you'll have a legitimate burial plan. Say yes, I need that in 2020. Yes. No, that's just called preparation, amen. I don't necessarily want to go to the doctor, but I'm glad that I pay in medical insurance because in case I do need it, it's better to have it and not need it than need it and not have it. No, I'm saying don't get life insurance. It's a good thing. But what I'm saying is, moving forward, fear will not have me living in fear of dying. No. You can stop fear right here. You can stop fear right now. We're going to push the stop button, the stop button on my funeral right now. I'm not going to give in to my fears taking me out. I'm not going to give in to the fear of not being here anymore. I'm not going to give in to the fear of not completing my assignment. I'm not going to give in to the fear of my disease and my injuries taking over me. No, I'll be afflicted, but I'm still going to live. Might live with a limp, but I'm going to live. So today we're going to have to ditch the funeral, y'all. We're going to have to stop the funeral right now. And that's what I love about today's scripture because today's scripture, Jesus shows us how to stop a funeral. Jesus shows us how to ditch a funeral when it's going on. I love this story because there's some partiality here. Part of the reason that I love this story, Steve, is because scripture says that Jesus is coming from Decapolis. If you know anything about Decapolis, Steve, Decapolis is from the southeastern region of Galilee Sea. And because of that, I said you might got me on your side in this scripture, Dr. Luke. And I'm looking here, and as Jesus, is coming from the southeastern side of the Galilee, he runs into a throng of people. And one of these people that are in the throng of people is a man by the name of Jairus, y'all. Jairus comes up to him and tells him essentially this: my daughter is about to die. My 12-year-old daughter is about to die. This same scripture or story, rather, Erlene, is also being shown in Mark, the 5th chapter. It's also on display in Matthew, the 9th chapter. But the reason why I like this version better is because Luke is telling the story. I like Dr. Luke, y'all, because he's a licensed physician. If Luke says somebody was injured from the breath of a life physician, well, I'm going to go with Luke. If Luke says somebody is clinically dead, then guess what, y'all? I got to go with the good doctor and what the good doctor says, amen? Luke tells us that this lady, this young lady, this 12-year-old girl is sitting here and she is about to die. I like this part of the story, Adam, because this part of the story is interesting. It calls Jairus a young ruler of the Pharisees. I think this is good because this is the second time Jesus meets a ruler of the Pharisees. The first time he meets a ruler of the Pharisees is a man by the name of Nicodemus. Now he meets another ruler of the Pharisees who's a man by the name of Jairus. But if you know something, there's a difference between the two rulers. The first ruler, Nicodemus, was a lawyer. The second ruler is what we consider an administrator. This man is interesting in this sense because the scripture says that Jairus comes to Jesus while he's daylight, while it's in daylight. Nicodemus meets Jesus after night, or when the night is in session. This is what I love about this, is what this tells me. The dilemma that we have here is sometimes I need Jesus after hours. And there's sometimes I need Jesus to work in my life between the 9 to 5 hours. There are sometimes when I need to meet Jesus when nobody else is looking, like Nicodemus. But there are times when I need Jesus and I don't care who's looking, like Jairus. Jairus comes and tells him, my daughter is dying. Come to my house. Right, kid, don't miss this. This is interesting. He tells Jesus his daughter's dying, but then he tells Jesus, I need you to come to my house. Now, this man is essentially the synagogue site supervisor. He's the head administrator of the synagogue. He's the chief operational officer of the synagogue. He's responsible for cutting checks, y'all. He's responsible for hiring and firing people. He's responsible for giving job assignments. Jairus is responsible. His day-to-day routine is responsible for telling who preaches in the synagogue. He talks to the people that preach and tell them what scripture you're going to be preaching out of in the synagogue. He's responsible for finding who sings in the synagogue. He's responsible for finding what song you'll sing in the synagogue. With all this power that this man has in the synagogue, it blows my mind that all this executive power that this man has inside of his local church, and he has to invite Jesus to his house because God has never been to his house before. Does everything, yeah it is, March Bursita, does everything for the church. Does everything for church people. I'm preaching to you, Cephus. Does everything for his community. I'm preaching to you, Shaunte Demon. Does everything for the people connected to him, but yet Jesus still has never been to his house. I said, you got to talk to me, Lord. The Lord wants to know, in all you're doing, and all your assignments, and all the things that you've done for people, have you done a lot, but still haven't had me in your house? I would hate to have it said that I do a lot for Jesus, but Jesus never comes to my house. So here it is, Jesus. You see this woman here, Stephanie, the woman with the issue of blood. What happens here, watch this, don't miss this, Bill Brown. What happens is Jesus is being approached by Jairus, but Jesus then gets interrupted in order to perform a miracle in somebody else's life. I had to look at this and I said, it makes sense, because for some of us, we think the reason that Jesus hasn't responded to our prayers is because Jesus forgot about us. But can I encourage you, the reason that Jesus the reason Jesus is taking his time getting back to you is because he's too busy performing another miracle. So you need to see this. You need to see this. That you might be discouraged, but you got to lighten up. Why? Because I understand if I haven't seen him or if I haven't heard him, it doesn't mean that he's gone away and left me hanging. Lord has never ghosted me. But if I don't hear him or if I don't see him, that means he's somewhere working on another miracle. Somebody say, work on my miracle. I'm here. Now Luke has to deliver the bad news. He says, essentially, your 12-year-old daughter is dead. Luke, why is that significant that you would mention her age? You need to know this, that in Jewish customs, when you're 12 years old as a woman, you are at the legal marriage age. You are legally eligible to be married. Somebody like, you better not touch my 12-year-old daughter. But at the age of 12, he says essentially you are at the legal age that we can marry her. And I said, Luke, what are you trying to say here? Luke says essentially this. I want you to see the picture, prophet. He says essentially your 12-year-old daughter has died. That is a hard pill to swallow for some of us. Essentially, Jairus or Jairus has to deal with the fact that I've now seen my daughter transition from child to adulthood to dead in less than 12 years. That's a hard pill for some of us to swallow, to look at our loved ones and have to say, man, I didn't get a chance to spend that much time with you. I've only got a chance to live with you for 24 years. I've only got a chance to live with you for 50 years. I've only got a chance to live with you for 45 years. He now has to look and swallow the hard truth that my daughter is dead. So this is what comes to us. It's one of Jairus' staff members comes to Jesus and says, Jesus, don't bother showing up at that invitation at Jairus' house, because the one that you needed to go see, she's dead. Now, this messed me up, y'all. Somebody say, why did it mess you up? It messed me up because of this. You got somebody telling the giver of life, come on now, somebody is going to actually tell the life giver, the Alpha, the Omega, the beginning and the end. Somebody actually has the cojones to approach Jesus and tell them that somebody else's life has died. And I like this because what it shows me is how many times have we took somebody else's opinion about something that is a non-professional. We listen to people that are not doctors try to give us medical opinions about what's going on with our body. We listen to people that have never been to law school try to tell us, oh, them people down at that job are doing you wrong and they ain't doing right according to your legal status, and legally they can get sued for that. You ain't got not nan degree. You just watched a lot of Judge Mathis, a lot of Judge Judy, and a lot of Judge People Court, and now you think you know everything just because you a Law and Order fan and you love to watch CSI. Fool, you don't know nothing about law. How many times, I ask you, have we listened to non-professionals and took non-professionals' professional opinion about stuff going on in our life? Last time I checked, you wasn't an accountant. But yet you want to kill my dreams and tell me that I don't have enough money for that. Am I preaching to somebody? You want to tell me that I can't afford to go there. Am I preaching to somebody? You want to tell me I can't afford to live there. You want to tell me that I can't afford to go on vacation right now. I'm preaching to myself. But last time I checked, you weren't a professional. You were just a weekend warrior sitting on the sideline. So now we're sitting here. And we're looking at scripture. And because Jairus got some non-professional opinion about his daughter. Remember, the scripture lets us know that Jairus was with Jesus. They come and break the bad news to him. And this is what gets me. It's because Jairus got some non-professional opinion about his daughter. Jairus goes and starts a funeral for his daughter, even though he doesn't have a professional opinion about what's happening with his daughter. Messes me up, because now you started a funeral for your daughter way too early. And now Jesus has to step in and has to explain to this young man how to ditch a funeral. I'm looking here, and it brings us to our key verse for the day. In Luke, the 8th chapter, verse number 50 through 52. But when Jesus heard it, he answered him, saying, fear not, believe only, and she will be made whole. As they approached the house, the whole neighborhood was full of the sound of mourning, weeping, wailing, and loud crying. And Jesus told everyone, watch this, y'all. He said, y'all stay outside. You're making too much noise. Stay outside. I came to tell somebody today that the message is simply real simple as it pertains to your mind. No fear means no funeral. If I can get rid of my fear, then I can ditch the funeral. Because as long as I'm holding on to my fears, then the funeral will always be on replay, showing ESPN highlights through my mind of me dying and succumbing to my phobias over and over again. But here's my question today, Jesus, is how do we stop the funeral? He's already got family there at the funeral. The funeral home is already there in attendance at the funeral. He's already got the praise team present for the funeral. They just essentially want Jesus to show up to essentially give the eulogy so we can go ahead and put baby girl on the ground. And he's sitting here, and I'm looking because even the good doctor Bill, the good doctor Luke says this. He says that her spirit has left her body by now. So if the spirit has left the body, the praise team is there, the funeral home has appeared. And how do we stop this funeral from happening when it looks like it's almost over? And that's when Jesus showed me our first point for today. Our first point is this. In 2020, don't start any more funerals if Jesus won't show up. Why? Because what Scripture tells me in this instance is Jairus went on and let everybody know about the funeral, but Jesus was the last to know about the funeral. I'm curious, all these fears that we keep seeing in our mind of us dying and succumbing to all of our phobias, I'm curious, have you told Jesus about the funeral? Have you told Jesus that you're about to die? Or is this something that you're in unison with between you and the phobia? Don't you start any more funerals in 2020 and you haven't invited Jesus to the funeral. Jesus has the last say about whether I'm going to live or die. Jesus has the last say about whether or not death will have victory over me. Jesus has the last say about whether or not I'll be victorious in this life. Jesus is the one that has to. Don't you have another funeral and fail to invite Jesus? Come on, somebody. Next thing he does, he essentially says this. He says, everybody get out. You want to know how to ditch a funeral? You want to know how to put a stop to a funeral? Is everybody that's at the funeral, get them out. Tells them, clear the room. Why? Why we need to clear the room, Jesus? Because it's too noisy up in here. And this is what happens in most of our lives. You see, we've invited too many people in our business. And now we got everybody in our business now. Now we can't get the noise to stop, y'all. So I'm here. I see another thing that Jesus does. Jesus looks over at all of them and tells them, stop crying. Shut up. Take that weeping, that crying, that boo-hooing, all that snotting, take it outside. Only person I want left in here is my crew and her parents. But all the rest of y'all, praise team, go wait outside. Funeral home, go wait outside. Coroners, go wait outside. The people that are here to spectate just to see the car crash happen, go wait outside. I had to look at this because if you know anything about a Palestinian tradition, prophet, what they would do in those days is they would actually hire people to cry and to weep for them. What Jairus had did before Jesus had shown up, he had already hired people to cry and mourn for his baby girl, and she ain't even dead yet, y'all. He had already planned the funeral, y'all. And essentially, when you do that, when you hire professional mourners to cry and to weep for you, essentially what you're doing is you're doing that so that they can sympathize with you and they can have sympathy for you. I came to tell somebody that you're in the point in your life, we don't care about your fears no more. Ain't nobody gonna have sympathy on you in 2020. We're not sympathizing with your fear of talking to people outside of your race. I'm preaching, Cephus. We're not gonna fear with your fears of having success. We're not gonna buy it no more. We're not gonna fall into the fact that you got fears because of the opposite sex, or you got fears due to all the abuse that's happened in your lives. Jesus says, all you sympathizers and people people that are looking to provide sympathy for this situation, go wait outside. What are you saying, Jesus? The way that we're going to stop the funeral, the way that we're going to get over our fears is we can't have sympathy for you anymore. We cried enough tears in 2019 for you issue. Come on, Cephus. We cried for you in 2018. We were very sympathetic for you in 2016 and 2017. Man, we even fell out at the funeral for you back in 2010. But he says from this point on, you ain't getting no more sympathy from professional mourners. Go wait outside. I'm looking here. I said, Jesus, why you got to do that, man? The next thing that he does in order to stop the funeral, to put the funeral procession to a halt, he does this, and I think this is interesting. He ditches the laughing. Some people are going to laugh at the fact that you're trying to get over your fears. Some people are laughing at the fact that you're trying to come up and to get better. And let me just tell you this. In 2010, don't fight with people that want to laugh at you for finally doing something about your fear. Don't fight with people that want to laugh at you and mock you because you're finally addressing the things, the phobias that have been bullying you in your life. No, don't do that no more. Simply put them outside. I like this because essentially if you laugh at my fears right now, you don't get to see my miracle. So I'm here. Jesus takes the girl by the hand. In Mark, the 5th chapter, he says it something like this in Arabic. He says, Talitha Kumi. Essentially what means this: little lamb, get up. The Lord, what's going on here? What special power do you have at work that's able to get this girl to respond to your word? And that's when the Lord showed me something. The last point on how to ditch a funeral. And this is where the Lord messed me up at. Is essentially the Lord shows us that the girl was never dead, but simply the girl was sleeping. I said, Lord, you got to help me with that. This is what blows my mind about Luke, the 8th chapter, is the way Jesus speaks to death like it's sleep. Essentially, what the Lord showed me about sleep is the little girl wasn't dead. She was just stuck. You know what it means to be asleep? Sleep essentially is to be stuck between eternity and time. Said the girl's not dead. She didn't give away the eternity. But she's not up and walking around either in this time. No, she's simply stuck between eternity and time. And I see what's happening as to how we're going to ditch the funeral in our lives. I see what we need to do in order to overcome fear in our lives. Some of us have to get over with being stuck. Let me help you out. Your dreams are not dead. They're just stuck. The divorce is not final. No, the marriage ain't dead. It's just stuck. Your health, no, it's not final. The final outcome is not final. You're not going to die. You're just stuck right now. And for some of us, we need to recognize that I'm in a season of my life that I'm just stuck. But if God be for us, I'm telling you what happens is God will unstick the person that's stuck. Instead of looking at stuff as dead, I need to start looking at them as stuck. Essentially what happens is this. It's not that my finances are dead. It's just that I've been stuck at being broke too long. It's not that my relationships are dying. I just been stuck in a bad relationship too long. And I'm praying that in 2020, for some of us to get where we need to go, that God will move on us and unstick us. Now growing up, and this might be a surprise to my mother, we had something called Senior Ditch Day at school, but it's a bad thing because I was actually ditching as a sophomore, junior, and senior, amen. But we had what they call Senior Ditch Day. In order to have, Brikea, a successful Senior Ditch Day, you needed to have two things. One thing you needed to have, first of all, a place to go if you were going to ditch school. The second thing that you needed if you were going to ditch school is you needed a ride, y'all. Come on. I'm here to tell you that Jesus has provided a place for us to go. He has provided victory for us to be in. Don't you understand that Jesus wants you see you in the place of fulfillment? He wants to see you in the place of plenty. He wants to see you in a place of overflow. That's what he has for you. You got a destination, y'all. Well, then what's my vehicle, Cephus? Well, your vehicle today is going to be your worship. Why? My worship will get me from being stuck. My purpose is going to push me to where I need to go. My vehicle is his praise. My vehicle is his purpose. My vehicle is the word of God right now. I got some place to be, and I got a way to get there. But it all depends. We have to make up our mind from this point on. I've got to ditch the fear. I can't allow my fears. I can't allow my fears to ransack my mind and hold my future hostage. And now I can see my own funeral happen over and over and over again. No, I'm not dead. I'm just stuck, y'all. Get my definition right. What you see right now, I won't always be here. The position that I've been stuck at for 5 years, I'm not always going to stay right here. But eventually, the Lord will move me to where I need to go. Stand to your feet. Someone here today, you need to make a conscious effort. I can't keep letting death replay over and over and over again in my mind. No matter how many phobias I get, I refuse to let my phobias take me out. Make a decision right now. I got to look at this thing differently. I said it last week. We got so many fears and phobias. It's no wonder we can't live a normal life. Fear of swimming, fear of water, fear of flying, fear of driving. Well, how do you do anything? Fear of eating shrimp, fear of eating meat, fear of eating pork, fear of having kids, fear of using contraceptives. So many fears. How do you do anything? How do you live life trapped in a prison of fear and phobia? And I'm asking you this question while I'm talking to myself. Is how did I get in this prison? How did I get in this solitary confinement of all these phobias? Can we go back to the first statement? There's only two fears that are innate that you're born with. The fear of falling and the fear of loud noises. So my question to you is, where did you learn the other fears from? Most of us, when we go down that rabbit hole and go down that trail to find out where I learned all these fears from, the person that probably introduced them to me is probably dead by now. He's dead. She's dead. But yet your fear is still alive. And where they do that at? Who am I talking to today? I refuse to have a funeral because of my fears. I'm encouraging you right now. Ditch the funeral. It could be senior ditch day at Epic Encounters. Come on. Ditch the funeral. You don't have to live your life scared of people. Some of us, I heard Will Smith say one time, prophet, he's scared of being broke. And I was listening to his story. And Brikea, essentially what he said was, after having all that success with my parents just don't understand and summertime, he said right after that, he went through a divorce, lost everything, and he was back to riding a bus in L.A. While he was riding the bus, somebody introduced him to the plot for the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. And so he promised himself from that day on, I'm going somewhere with it, David. He promised himself from that day on, he said that fear of having everything and losing everything again, he said, I live my life with the fear now of being broke. And so that's why I hold on to my money. Now, some fear is good. It gets you to where you need to be. But I got to tell you this also. What got you here won't take you there. Where you need to go next, those same phobias and fears, they can't go with you. For your next relationship, Erlene, the old fears that you had in the last relationship, they can't go with you. I don't know about you, but I'm in a place right now, I'm trying to avoid being stuck in the same place. And I realize that if I'm going to unstick or get unstuck, some of the fears that I have, I've got to release them and hand them over to Jesus. Who here is ready to do that? Who's here? Who here is ready to move on? I'm praying right now. I'm praying for somebody. I'm believing somebody. I'm believing that there's hope in the room today, that we'll finally come to an agreement that I don't need them anymore. Fear was good the first time when I had to run from the pit bull. But ain't no pit bulls chasing me in my apartment complex right now. Ain't no stalker after me. Look, I hope not. Ain't no stalker after you at this point in your life. The molester can't blackmail you anymore now. I want to ask you right now, who's ready to give up some of those fears? Because if not, I fear for some of us will stay stuck. And Jesus didn't die for me to stay stuck. He didn't die for me to stay stuck. Who here wants to get over fears today? I want to pray with you. I personally want to pray with you. I want to see you succeed. I want to see us succeed. I want to see us get over some fears. I like what we did last week right here. And I'm going to ask that we do that again. Who's willing to come up here and confess some fears? Not openly. You don't have to confess them to everybody in the room. But look, I just need some personal prayer and help to get over this. I see myself dying lonely and afraid like my mama did. I see myself struggling for the rest of my life. I see myself having to be taken out of here in the paramedics like my grandparents. I see myself dying of a heart attack like my family member. Who here is being blindsided and being harassed by your fears today? You ain't got to live. You ain't got to be blackmailed and harassed and beat down by your fears today. And for those that are online watching, we thank you for tuning in, and we're praying for you because we know there's somebody watching right here. You gave up on having a successful life a long time ago. You gave up because your fears and phobias have taken over, and we want to let you know that you got help in the sanctuary. There's help here, and there's people that are here that are dedicated to interceding for you and to helping you overcome. Who needs prayer at this time?
Hello, we want to thank you for watching this segment. We would like to hear more from you. Please follow us and connect with us via social media outlets. We want to offer you an opportunity to partner with us. We can do more together. Below is the information on how you can be part of bringing this message from our community to yours. And before you leave, take our motto with you: more compassion, fewer complaints.